Good afternoon, everyone, from St Andrews, where the Philippe Clement era starts for Norwich City against Birmingham. I've just hastily run up to the press box, where today on Team News it's just me, Connor Southwell and Paddy Davitt, both away on holiday. So I'll be filling in this afternoon, and without further ado, here's the Norwich City team for today's game. Let me know if you can't hear me or anything like that. So it's Vladan Kovacevic in goal, Jack Stacey at right back, Shane Duffy and Harry Darling at centre back, Kellen Fisher at left back, Mirko Topic and Kenny McLean in the centre of midfield, with Oscar Schwartau on the left, Jovan Makama on the right, and Josh Sargent through the middle. Up front on the bench, Daniel Grimshaw, Jakov Medic, Rory McConville, Jacob Wright, Tony Springett, Pelle Matson, Amankwah Forson, Emi Marcondes and Errol Mundell Smith. Now, quite an interesting team. There are only two changes by Clement for his first game as Norwich City head coach. He hasn't opted to shuffle his pack too much, despite having come into a team that hasn't won in 11 games in the Championship. They're trying to win for the first time in 12, and I think probably the standout for most people will be Duffy back in at centre-back. I think probably the thinking behind that for Clement will be trying to introduce a bit more leadership, a bit more personality to the back line, but ultimately, you know, he's only, I think, played a couple of games so far this season, and the last time he played, he looked pretty poor. So I think Jakov Medic and Rory McConville probably will be wondering what's going on, maybe what they've done wrong. But yeah, I feel like probably the reason behind that will be sort of personality driven, and Clement wanting some sort of leaders to step up in that team, which of course is why Liam Manning brought Duffy back into the team. It's also why Mark Atanasio felt that maybe he should be getting a little bit more game time. So an interesting step to bring Duffy back in. Jack Stacey comes back in after 3 games missed with a concussion. That means Fisher goes over to left back, and I think probably a just reward for his performances while Stacey was out injured. I think although he had a very difficult start to the season, I thought in those games he was okay, really, and maybe didn't deserve to drop out of the team. So it makes sense for him to be at left back in that sense. I think where the problem is for Norwich is balance, because you want a left footer at left back ultimately, and I do have sympathy with Clement for his first team selection because Lucian Mahovo is injured, Ben Krasene is injured, Jeffrey Schlupp is also injured. He doesn't have too many options. Maybe I would have gone with McLean so that you have that natural left footer out there, but he's gone for Fisher, and it will have to be an inverted system. In midfield, Pelle Matson obviously drops out, which again is I think a little bit of a surprise. Mirko Topic keeps his place, and I have to say Topic hasn't particularly impressed me in the last few games. Certainly doesn't have that kind of attacking drive and that ability to turn on the ball that maybe you see from most of Clement's midfielders at his previous teams. I think McLean has that ability, so having him back in midfield rather than perhaps the alternative at left back might help them with that. But for me, that feels like a relatively defensive 2. Then the front 4, of course, unchanged from that 2-1 loss to Leicester in Manning's last game. Of course, worked pretty well for Fisgoren when he found his 3rd goal in yellow and green. A fantastic strike in that game. And although I don't think he's a natural kind of typical number 10, he probably is the best option Norwich have in that role at the moment. I think the lack of options they have in wide areas has been spelled out by Schwartau being on the left and Makama being on the right, both of whom are kind of central options or have been for a lot of their career. And then Sargent, you can't really, you can't have him out of the team. Ultimately, you can't really avoid putting him in there. Matej Jurasek obviously is someone who's missing from that squad, and we're led to believe that he has been suffering with illness throughout the week, and that's the reason why he's been absent. So no Jurasek, he joins the lengthening Norwich City injury list, although only temporarily for now, it seems, with what should be a short-term problem with illness. So no Jurasek. Let me know what you make of the team in the comments. I will be, and I'll highlight some of the best ones, and we can have a bit of a discussion too about that. Benny Van Life says he's obviously going for experience to start with. As I said, with Duffy, I think that signals that he wants a bit more leadership, a bit more experience, players who he can trust. And I think, we've seen that before with new Norwich City head coaches. David Wagner opted for Tim Krul despite Angus Gunn's good form when he first came into the club. And I think going with players who you can kind of trust at this level is an understandable choice, whether you think it's the right one or not. And of course, Stacey kind of fits into that. Fits into that bracket as well of slightly more experienced Championship players. Andy Davis says it will take weeks to see his team, so cannot judge much at all for the first few games. Yeah, I think in terms of the performance, obviously Norwich fans will want to see positive signs, but Clement has been kind of clear about the fact that he wants a bit of time to kind of to go through that. And with the team selection, I think that will also be honed over the next few weeks. Ultimately, he's only seen these players for a few days. He's got 10 players out injured, so it's always going to be difficult to field his best 11, and I think that will take a little bit of time to find as well. Let's see if we've got any new ones. Lieb says the selection is a bit irrelevant. It's how Clement can get them performing. Maybe that's fair enough. Although I think it does show a bit of a sign as to what his preferences are and the way that he wants his Norwich team to play. Johannes asks, is Topic starting because of his fitness? And actually, that is an interesting question, because the video that the club put out earlier this week showed them doing a bleep test. And Topic, it looked like, was the winner of that. He was going long after some of the other players had dropped out. So maybe fitness is part of it. Clement has talked a lot about fitness already and how that's a priority for him. And he thinks it's been a weakness for Norwich in their last few games. So perhaps that's an astute observation by Johannes, and perhaps that is the reason behind that. Robin Hodgson says, I think Fisher at left back is more to do with King Kenny playing in midfield. Like the look of it. Wonder if Oscar and Mateus could interchange. That's a good point. I think both of those can kind of play in that number 10 and that out wide position. Chris Goran has come off the left previously at Bromby and has probably the dribbling skills to do it as well. So maybe there is a bit of that. And also, I spoke on Tactics Board this week about the fact that Clement likes to have kind of flexible players and players who can go into different positions and cause problems for the defence in that sense. I think maybe that does work and has a bit of that that rotation about it, and that kind of those different spaces occupied. Crispy one, did Ryan Gary pick the team or Paul? I was going to say Paul Clement there, or Philippe Clement. From what we're led to believe, it was fully Clement when he made that decision. And although it is early in his tenure, I think he's had long enough, and 3 or 4 training sessions is enough for me to select the right team. Let's have a quick look then at what Birmingham are doing with their starting 11. It's been kind of a mixed start for them. Obviously, they come into it with a bit of momentum kind of off the pitch. They're celebrating their 150th anniversary, and they've just revealed plans for a new stadium as well. So hoping to up the feeling from there. You look at some of the names in their team: Beadle, Tomoki, Newman, Clara, Cochrane, Doyle, Leonard, Roberts, Stansfield, Gray, and Dutch. I mean, you look at some of that talent in the, particularly the attacking part of the pitch. Roberts, of course, a former Norwich player, not very successful at Carrow Road, but has done fairly well so far for Birmingham. Stansfield, I think everyone knows his quality, and of course, a £10 million player in League One, that probably that shows his quality. Although I think he probably could have done a little bit more for Birmingham in the start of this season and last season, but he is always a threat. And of course, Demarai Gray, lots of experience in the Premier League and also a threat, as he's shown already in the Championship. So I think Norwich will need to be switched on in a defensive sense, and in an offensive sense, they obviously need to show fans signs of what maybe they were missing under Liam Manning. So I think, a lot to prove. Probably a bit of a free hit in a sense. I know that sounds strange about such a big game, but ultimately, if Norwich lose this game, I don't think anyone's going to say Clement out or decide that it's time up for him. I think it will be an opportunity to learn a lot about what he wants, But ultimately, you look at the way that they've performed the last few weeks. If they do manage to get a win against, a relatively strong Birmingham side who are at home and will feel confident, I think that would be huge. So it's an interesting one. In terms of score prediction, before I leave you, I'm going to go with a 1-1. I feel like I predict that every game. But I think Norwich will have the kind of renewed optimism of Clement's appointment. The old new manager bounce cliche, I think, might kick in here. And especially given it's just after an international break. I'm not sure it will be a great game, but I think Norwich will find their way to a point here at St Andrews. So I'm saying 1-1. Let's see how things go. And of course, we'll have all of your coverage across our channels. So go to pinkham.com/subscribe if you haven't already, and you'll have access to all of that. Thanks very much for joining me this afternoon. I appreciate it's just me this time, so it's been a bit rough and ready, but hopefully we've been able to bring you some news of team news and a little bit of analysis ahead of today's huge game. As I said, pinkham.com/subscribe, the place to go. We've got a sale on at the moment, actually, so extra reasons to do that.